To celebrate hip hop's 50th anniversary, fans get to vote on the greatest rap crew of all time, with the winner announced during BET Awards weekend. We have Kimberly Osorio here to chat all about it. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
The voting is now open. People can vote through June 9th on BET.com, Twitter, and Instagram. It's a tournament style. Tell me a little bit about how this is going to work.
Well, fans need to go online to BET.com. We're launching today. You can vote all the way up to June 9th. The winner is going to be announced at the BET Awards, and each crew will go head to head in a battle. And, for every week, we'll sort of like advance that crew to the next round. So a number of rounds, a lot of voting, hopefully. And we're just really excited to see who comes out on top. Every region is going to be represented here.
So when you think about voting, should people vote on maybe their favorites, who had the biggest impact? What should people consider before casting their votes?
People, I mean, you want to consider just how much impact that crew has had, who's down with the crew. Everything is going to be laid out online because there's specific criteria to the rap crews, right? It's not a label, it's a rap crew. But sometimes the crews are defined by the label, because when you think of Bad Boy, that's how you define the rap crew. So it's really about your own personal favorite, right? Because when the fans get in there, you're going to vote for probably the top rap crew in your region. But consider, what impact that crew has had. Consider the songs, the hit records, just sort of the crossover potential. I think there's a lot to consider when you think about who's the greatest.
I mean, because you just mentioned Bad Boy Family, Sean Combs, Mace, Faith Evans, Little Kim. That's so many of those hit songs, especially for people that grew up in the mid 90s or, in the aughts, that those were all the songs that were on the radio. Maybe an older generation, NWA and the Posse, Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, Eazy-E. I mean, that's what really kicked it off for another generation. But then you have like Odd Future right now, where you have Tyler, the Creator, Frank Ocean, where those are making the hits now. I mean, there's so many different things that are tied to people's lives.
Yeah, that's what's going to be interesting because, hip hop does span 50 years now. So when I think of my favorites, I think of crews like the Juice Crew or the Native Tongues, right? Because that's what I came up listening to. But just to know that certain crews are still here. Bad Boy started their crew in the 90s, and Bad Boy is still here. So I think that's also something to consider when you think about who the greatest, just the time that's invested.
I do want to talk a little bit about the theme of appreciating each other's generations, because that's something that I've been exploring, especially the past couple of months, because you have those fans that are going to be 55, 60 years old that are going to vote, and they were there, before hip hop started to the beginning. So they're going to have a different perspective versus maybe someone who's 18 and grew up with somebody else, where they may appreciate other styles of music, but what's happening now is really what is defining their generation. Talk a little bit about maybe each other's generation appreciating everybody else's music.
Well, I mean, even though I said these are my favorite crews, right, in that specific time period, I definitely can appreciate the impact that crews like Young Money have had on hip hop, that crews like Odd Future have had on hip hop. And that's way after what I would consider like the heyday of hip hop. So I think that what's special about this competition is that you can look at, these 50 years, you can appreciate the different regions, the different times that these crews have come out, and be able to really sort of weigh, what goes into just being a great rap crew. And because they're going head to head, right, and like, and then advancing to the next round, it'll be interesting to see, just who comes out on top.
Because I know I definitely have my favorites, and I'm not trying to sway the voting in one way or the other, but there's also those times where, like, you listen to a song, you're like, oh, I like this song. And then there's other times where you're like, I need 3 minutes. This is my song. Nobody bother me. Like, I think everybody has those like defining moments and those defining tracks in their lives.
Definitely. And hip hop has that effect on people. I think a lot of hip hop fans are really personally connected to the culture and the music. So, there's a lot beyond the music just to think about when you think about the greatest rap crews. Some of these rap crews have had influence, right, on the crews today. So a lot of the crews we out there are sort of designed by what might have been out there in the 80s and 90s.
Because you also get to think that, like, if you're an older generation, you may not be as familiar with some of the newer tracks, but it gives you a chance to maybe listen to what why they're, in the bracket and why they're in this tournament, and get to listen to them. And maybe some of the younger fans who may not be as familiar with some of the older crews, that they're like, let me go back and listen to these. And you get to be like, oh, now I know why, people love these songs so much. So I think it's a good way for people to appreciate, all 50 years.
I think that's a really great point when you think about when once you go online, it's almost like a lesson in hip hop history. Because if you're going online to vote for one crew, you might discover someone else just by saying, okay, wait, well, before I vote, let me do a little bit of research, a little bit of homework here on this crew that I may not be so familiar with because they came out 20 years ago.
Awesome. Well, Kimberly, thank you so much for your time today. Cannot wait to see who ends up voting on top, and then getting to see how the tournament ends up going, week after week. The voting is open now. It's going to go all the way through June 9th, bet.com, Twitter, and Instagram. And I can't wait to see how this all plays out.
Thanks. Everybody go vote for your favorite rap crew.
Thank you so much.